The Yankees are giving me 3 months full pay for doing nothing.
Well, I did it for 3 years. What's another few months?
I'm really going to do something with these 3 months.
Like what?
I'm going to read a book. From beginning to end, in that order.
I've always wanted to do that.
I can learn to play golf.
You mean golf?
Golf! Frisbee golf, Jerry! Golf with a frisbee! This is going to be my time. Time to taste the fruits and let the juices drip down my chin. I proclaim this the Summer of George!
Hello, welcome back to the One Star Cowboys podcast. I'm Kevin Turner. We have John Machota and Saad Youssef here as well. Kent Garrison went to see Paul Simon or Wilco or something. Let's get right to it. Cowboys make a trade for George Pickens, giving up a third-round pick in next year's draft, a fifth-round pick in the 2026 draft. I'm sorry, the 2027 draft. The years are if I'm not. Let me do this again, guys. Sorry, I fucked it. Let's be right here. 3, 2, 1. Hello, welcome back to the One Star Cowboys podcast. I'm Kevin Turner with John Machota and Saad Youssef. Let's get right to it. Cowboys make a trade for George Pickens, giving up a third-round pick in next year's draft, a fifth-round pick in the 2027 draft, and then also getting a sixth in return. But George Pickens is the topic. I want to get right to it with a fastball. We'll start with you, John. If you were running the team, would you have made this trade?
Absolutely. There's definitely times when I've covered the team when I wouldn't have, but this team has gotten too boring over the last 2 years for me to say that I wouldn't do this. And it's one of those moves where this is the type of move that Howie Roseman does, and we would give him credit for it. So it's about time that the Cowboys do something aggressive. So there are plenty of reasons for people to be skeptical. I totally get that. There's plenty of reasons for us to look back and maybe say that they gave up too much or it wasn't worth it or whatever. But I absolutely, if it's me, I'm absolutely doing this deal. Let him play out that final year of his rookie deal, see what happens. See if he clicks with Dak. That's the best quarterback that he's played with. See how he is opposite of CeeDee Lamb, and then you go into next offseason and maybe you get a contract extension with him, or you franchise tag him, or you get the comp pick in return. But yeah, this is about as good as they were going to get. When they didn't get Ted McMillan at 8, this is probably the next best thing.
Yeah, I think I think this is the first indication to me that this team is actually in on 2025. I mean, so much of what they've done this offseason and throughout kind of led me to believe that 2025 was a building block and not so much as all eyes are on 2025. But with this move, it actually feels like 2025 means something. And this is, God, I hate to parrot this, but this is an all-in move. Like, this is like in 2025. I'm not saying the Cowboys are all in across the board, but I'm saying this move, because you don't know, this could be a 1-year rental for a third-round pick, and that's very possible on multiple fronts because, a lot of people just think about the head case that George Pickens has been. They think about, well, is this going to click with Dak? Is it all those other kind of other things? Look, there's also a world where there's some tough decisions, even if everything goes perfectly on the Pickens side of things, because right now Micah is up for a contract. Deron Bland is coming up. Tyler Smith is coming up. You already have one of the highest paid receivers in the league. You have one of the highest paid quarterbacks in the league. There's reason to believe that there could be a cause for pause, even if everything goes well with George Pickens. I think they would probably end up re-signing him because of his age and all that kind of stuff. But I'm just saying, it's no sure thing. Because this could end up being a 1-year rental at a third-round pick, yeah, this was a move that I absolutely would have done. And the last thing I'll say, KT, is this sets up your depth chart on offense pretty perfectly. There's no ambiguity, another Jerry term, but there's no ambiguity on any of your 11 slot. Well, there's no ambiguity on any of your 10 slots. Running back is kind of a whatever, but yeah, I think in terms of in general, I think 10 spots are locked and loaded with George Pickens in the fold.
I think the pros are obvious. The cons are probably actually deserve a little more digging, to be honest, because you're going to get tons of reports on this guy from his time in Pittsburgh. I think the number one point that we'll stick with, like based on evidence that we know, is the lack of good quarterback play. When Dak Prescott becomes the best quarterback you've ever played with, and it's not even close, that's big time. And also the confidence that you're going to be good next year is something a little refreshing and that I would like to see around here. And if we're talking about a third round pick in next year's draft, well, there's a big difference in picking 75th or 76th and picking in the 90s. So I love it. I do think it is, it does have the, I think I tweeted this earlier. This is not a great trade for the hot take industry though, because we truly do need to balance a couple things. His agent is the same agent as Micah Parsons, and you might have a guy who wants to get paid, and you've already paid CeeDee Lamb, and that's where it gets complicated. And you can look at maybe getting a guy and getting nothing back for him. But man, that is so far down the road at this point. Everyone was griping that this team did not address wide receiver 2 after the draft. After, in my opinion, they had a really good draft. Well, how about getting that taken care of within 10 days? Because that's covered. They've done everything we've asked them to do, and I'm pretty thrilled with this trade.
Yeah, and also real quick, like I think it's fascinating to me that they've improved the running game so much this offseason by not really improving the running back that much this offseason. It's kind of a fascinating thing because you draft Tyler Booker, you think you're going to be better up front, and that's going to help the running game. And I think George Pickens helps the running game quite a bit because now you can't stack the box as long as Dak, George Pickens, and CeeDee Lamb are out on the field together. You have to respect that. So obviously they added Jaden Blue, and you know it's a 5th round pick, and you know they have high hopes for him. But I think adding Jaden Blue would probably be the third best way that they've improved the running offense this offseason, which is kind of fascinating to me.
Yeah, there's definitely a downside to it. But I think that's why Dak Prescott's the highest paid quarterback in the NFL is partly because of the leadership side of it. And so there's going to be a lot on Dak's plate from this standpoint as well. That's why he's making the big bucks. He's going to have to deal with a little diva-ness that he really hasn't had to deal with that much, not on the offensive side of the ball, at least. So I think that there's going to be more on his plate, but you know, that's why you pay him what you pay him. And so it'll also be in a big indictment on Pickens if it doesn't work out. Like if you can't be bought in with guys like Dak, and Brian Schottenheimer seems like a very player's coach, and obviously CD, then that's going to say a lot about George Pickens because he's in a position right now where he should be very motivated, you know, that you should be a guy that you should have gotten a contract extension from the Steelers. You know, you probably should have put up better numbers with the Steelers. You know, you shouldn't even be in this situation. He's too talented to be in this situation where he's getting traded like this. And so he should have a motivation, you know, to play at a very high level. And then also the fact that he's in a contract year. So whether you want to stay in Dallas or Pittsburgh, or you want to pick where you go, it's in your best interest for this thing to work out for you. But the downside, I wouldn't be being honest if I wasn't talking about. There are some. I mean, I was joking around with the Steelers writer a little while ago that I was like, yeah, you know, Cowboys go up to Pittsburgh, get that rain delay, and then they're just like, and look at this guy's eye black and his 3 catches and pulling Jordan Lewis down by his face mask. This is a guy that we need. We need this guy in the locker room. We saw it up close. We need to make a move for this guy. But there's going to be, I mean, and then obviously Mike Tomlin, he's as respected as there is of coaches in the NFL. And he's talked about how George Pickens needs to grow up. And obviously, I think if Mike Tomlin wanted to go another year, they would go another year. But I'm sure that we got to eliminate some distractions. We're probably going to be bringing in Aaron Rodgers. So we got to get out of this thing right now. So I understand it from all sides. But the reason why I am fine with it is because that they've needed to do a bold move. I mean, look at that Eagles roster. That is not a group of milk drinkers over there. You got some guys that, honestly, it amazes me that they won the Super Bowl. And that goes from the head coach down to several of their players that you're just, wow, okay. So if you want to have like a full locker room of just good guys, great character guys, that's great. And that's great for your brand. But that's probably not winning championships. And when it's been 29 years, go ahead and take some swings of the bat.
Yeah, and I think John, you mentioned Brian Schottenheimer, and that's an interesting part of all this too. First time head coach. And, I'll go back to rooting for the Patriots growing up and all that kind of stuff. And you'd see them bring in a guy like Randy Moss. And I'm with you. I mean, I wrote about this like, right after the trade happened, that Dak is going to be a central part of this from his leadership standpoint. But the coaching staff is going to be very responsible for the culture and the leadership of this too. Like, I remember very clearly, like, when Randy Moss came into New England, yeah, Brady took him under his wing and did all that stuff, but it was Belichick that brought him in. It was Belichick that traded him away when it got too much. Eh, Tom Brady loved Antonio Brown, and it was clear they paired up in Tampa Bay as well. But when Antonio Brown became too much, Bill Belichick brought in Antonio Brown. Bill Belichick sent him away. And so it's going to be interesting to me how much of a stronghold Brian Schottenheimer, who is a player's coach, who is one of the nicer human beings you're going to meet, how he's going to kind of establish his way and his culture here with this situation as well.
He certainly seems like a guy that you're probably going to have to target early in the game to keep him in a good mindset, and that would be the concern. I would, we got a piece coming up on The Athletic tomorrow with myself and our Steelers writer, and we talk about that part of George Pickens where, I don't think anybody wants to see the Cowboys win a big game against whatever. We'll use the Eagles as an example, and he doesn't go off, so he's sulking on the sidelines. That's just not going to be a good look. That's not going to be received very well. So it'll be interesting to see how that works itself out.
I do have to think his overall demeanor will be better when he has an actual quarterback throwing to him. No, and I know we have probably a portion of our audience who is not in love with Dak, but compared to what he has been dealing with for 3 straight years, his entire existence in the NFL, this is going to be a big change. I think too, there's a couple things. I think he fits everything kind of perfectly. Like if you look at where he was in Pittsburgh after the move they made for DK Metcalf, those guys, I don't know that they necessarily play together well. Like CeeDee Lamb, the offense will still run through him. He'll still have, 100+ catches. George Pickens, I don't think is really maps out as that kind of, high volume 90 to 100 catch guy. I'm not saying it can't be done, but he is your spread the field deep threat guy. And instead of launching bombs to Turpin, let's launch some bombs to him. And I know there's a lot of numbers and analytics that'll show you, that he is a big winner on throws, plus 15 yards down the field and go routes and all that good stuff. But I think it actually works perfectly. And I think that'll also will go down to the tight end and be able to do more cool stuff with Turpin while also opening up the running game. It's just like a necessary move if you want to be taken seriously as a team. So I think it all fits really well. Although, look, and the other thing was with Shoddy, there's a lot of questions you ask about Shoddy or whatever. Shoddy's going to be judged on how he calls plays and how he schemes guys open and things like that. So that'll be a big part of this as well. But I love the aggression, man, because the NFC, we've been talking about this on this podcast for years. The NFC is gettable. So why not go get it?
Yeah, and also I think we talk about how this can impact Pickens in the offense, but I also think this is a very big positive for CeeDee Lamb if everything goes together, on the field and Pickens keeps his head straight. I mean, now you have so much flexibility with CeeDee Lamb. You can line him up anywhere in the offense, in the slot, on the outside, in the backfield, whatever you want to do. You have full freedom with CeeDee Lamb at this point, and because George Pickens can be your X wide receiver who's going to be on the outside. He's basically what they wanted Michael Gallup to be, but better. I mean, he's younger, he's better, he's all that stuff, and he doesn't have the knee injury. So I think that's interesting. But I will say, since 2018 until this year, aside from 2022, the Cowboys always had either Amari Cooper or Brandon Cooks in that locker room. There was always kind of that grown leader type guy, the mature receiver, and they need CeeDee Lamb to be that guy. The last couple of years, 2 years ago, we all remember the game in San Francisco, and even last year there were times with body language he came out, owned up to it, things like that. CeeDee Lamb has to graduate. As much as we're talking about George Pickens has to graduate in his maturity, CeeDee Lamb not as immature or even close to George Pickens, but he's got to graduate. He's been there with Amari Cooper. He's been there with Brandon Cooks. He has to now become that guy while also producing on the field.
And I do think that the way the depth chart is now, you got CD as your 1, Pickens is your 2, obviously. Some people say 1B. I think he's more of a 2. I don't think he's produced enough for me to say that he's even 1B to CD. I think he's clearly their 2. Jalen Tolbert to me is clearly their 3. He's got a great relationship with Dak coming off of his growth his previous 3 years. 4 to me is whatever way you want to go between Mingo and Turpin. That's 4 and 5. And so they're guaranteed that they're going to keep 5 receivers. There's a good chance they'll keep 6, but they'll definitely keep 5. So I think that those 5 are the ones that you're looking at. And then that leaves a battle in camp between Paris Campbell, Jalen Brooks, and probably Ryan Flanoy. I know some people will want to throw Trayshawn Holden in there, but and a couple others to battle it out for that 6th spot. And I think they ultimately do keep 6 receivers if all of them are healthy. And when you look at that, that's pretty good. You got a little bit of everything. And like I said, there's negatives to point out about it. But I think the big thing with me is, let's say they don't trade for Pickens. And let's just say they go into the season with what they have right now, the current roster without Pickens on it. Vegas will tell you that's a 7-8 win team. What are you doing there? So even if you go out there and this is a disaster, Pickens is arguing with CD, it doesn't work, there's a lot of infighting, they end up with 5 wins. Well, guess what? You got a high draft pick, you let Pickens go, you reevaluate next offseason. What were you doing anyway? You know what I'm saying? Like, it wasn't like, if you don't do this, like, don't do this move, this might jeopardize the Super Bowl run. That was never the case, and that's why when the move happened, I initially thought, well, they better get a contract extension done with him or it's not worth it. But then the longer the day went on, the more I thought to myself, nah, it's probably better just to let them play it out. See if he's completely bought in, see how he fits, see how he works with CD, see how that wide receiver room is, and then go from there. But I like them taking the gamble on it, because even if it doesn't work out, I don't think the negatives are really all that bad.
Yeah, and to be honest, if he had gotten an extension done this offseason before Micah, that would have been something interesting, because Mulligetta represents them both. And if Pickens got an extension before Micah did, I think that would not go over very well either.
No, it wouldn't go over well. But that's the other thing that's interesting. Last time we heard Jerry speak about Micah's agent, it was saying that he didn't know his name, even though Jerry was probably exaggerating and having a little fun with you guys. I think there's a couple things there. Like, in my opinion, George Pickens is not really deserving as of right now of a guy that you go give a long-term contract to. You see the talent, like, as a guy who has been fined as many times as he has been fined, and
by his own team, by the way.
By his own team, yeah. It's not like it's criminal stuff or anything like that, but it's like, okay, well, grow up a little bit here. You're 24, and we're going to let you grow up in a good environment, and we're going to win, and you're going to have a good quarterback, and you're going to have a better situation than you've ever had in your professional career. So go get it. And then you can, discuss how you want to handle that. So, I mean, if the Cowboys were to try to get ahead of a contract, which is something they never do, and I think it might be nonsensical that I'm even talking about this right now, but if they were...
Well, with star players, I mean, let's be fair. With star players, they don't.
Yeah, and that's the thing with him, though. He does have the star potential. Patrick Peterson compared him to DeAndre Hopkins, which is pretty high praise. He's talking about his potential. Again, he's a 24-year-old guy. It's kind of crazy to think that he's 2 years younger than Jalen Tolbert. But, you can see, like, the freak show talent, and you can go find enough metrics you want where he's top 10 wide receiver in the league. So that's where it's like, I really like the idea of this guy, like, earning it and getting in a good situation. That offense in Pittsburgh has not been a good situation in forever. So I think there's, like, some upside to that. You talk about, like, saving money and things like that. The Cowboys can make money. They can move money around. They can make it work, especially if the window tightens up where you need to go. Like, they can do all those things. So I'm not real worried about that too much.
How much do you think our tune changes, though, if, like, all of a sudden he doesn't show up to the start of training camp because he's not going to do anything until he gets a new contract?
That does change things quite a bit.
Can you imagine that?
It's George Pickens, so yes, I can imagine that. I gotta tell you, there's a small part of me Okay, so I love this trade. I'm on the record. I love the trade.
Same.
I also had like a small part of me that just wanted to see him and Aaron Rodgers like destroy each other, because that was not going to work. Like if Aaron goes to Pittsburgh, there like that was kind of one of my like things to watch going into this season.
You don't think Aaron and where Tomlin is in his career won't be enough?
I don't.
We'll put up with this bullshit.
Unless like DK Metcalf's always happy, you know. True. But that part's kind of fun. I had another thing I said was, we've talked about the other guys we were talking about bringing in here as wide receiver too, though, like Amari Cooper, Jerry Jeudy's name has been tossed around, and these other wide receivers, dude, he blows them out the water at this point in their career. Like watch what Amari Cooper was when he went to Buffalo, like, and to get that for what's probably going to be a pick in the 80s or 90s. I think that is a really big win, and getting some. It's busted goods. It's busted goods because his own house got tired of him. That's why it's busted goods. He's a really good player.
And then if it doesn't work, you get a comp pick back, and then you go into next year's draft, looking same as this year's draft, where hey, maybe you're looking for your number 2 receiver there, or everybody buckle up. This crazy idea, you do another trade for another number 2 wide receiver again. You know, I mean, seriously, like, okay, it didn't work out perfect. You should have a bunch of holes filled to where, all right, if we have to do this again next year, maybe it's not for somebody that you give up a 3rd, but maybe it's you give up a 5th or a 6th for a wide receiver that you're like, yeah, well, we'll use this veteran as a complement to CD and Tolbert or whoever they sign there. So, this could be huge. It could backfire, but I think that I like that they're taking a swing. It shows that Jerry is willing to do a little bit more than I thought he was willing to do with this current team. And that's a good sign. That gives people excitement. I'm excited for training camp just to see how that's going to go. I think I was produce some good videos.
I was going to say that's where I was going next. I was like, we're not talking about the real winner here, which is at John Machota on X for training camp videos, because not only is he a good receiver, but he's good for that exact reason. He's going to give you some highlight reel catches in training camp.
If only Jordan Lewis was still here, then we could have some real fun.
Hey, Jordan's tweet was elite. That made me laugh out loud.
That was on the money. If you missed it, basically said, that's why God wanted me to go to Jacksonville or get out of Dallas. I wonder how long this was in the works before the draft. I mean, Jerry had hinted around it, substantive. Was that the word he used?
Substantive
stuff.
It's a hard word to pronounce.
A tough word. I don't like that one.
Or pronounce. I can't even pronounce anything. Yeah. But yeah, it's a tough one, man. I don't like that he used that word at all, because I've had to repeat it a lot in the last 3 weeks. But to me, even when he said that, I'm like, okay, Jerry, we're thinking George Pickens. We're thinking Cortland Sutton. We're thinking Jameson Williams. You're going to give some type of Amari Cooper type level receiver at this stage in his career, where you're like, yeah, I mean, it's a chance to be 2, but I think it sits closer in the pile. The Mingo, Jalen Tolbert that's already there, where it's like, yeah, okay, you made a move, but this was a notable swing. To me, it's the biggest individual move since the Amari Cooper trade in 2018. So that's 6.5 years, and it's the biggest move, you can include more than one, to 2 years ago when they traded in that week for Stephon Gilmore and Brandon Cooks, because I know it didn't get them to even a playoff win, but that set that team up really well. I mean, that was a very good team, and they collapsed obviously against Green Bay, but I don't fault them for 2 years ago's offseason. I thought they did enough to fill the holes they needed to. Now, last year's they took obviously a significant step back and did almost nothing, but it's pretty clear with all the moves they made this offseason that they think that there's enough there to make somewhat of a run. They're not going to be any favorites or anything like that. It won't even be a favorite in their own division, but they got enough there that they should be able to compete with most of the teams that they play.
After these messages, we'll be right back.
I also want to say, like, it's kind of interesting how honest the Cowboys front office has been this offseason. Just in the sense of, like, when you hear a lot of times when they say things in the media, you think that, they're just saying stuff. But you go back to the point where And before the draft, and what I mean is telegraphing moves.
Yeah, because I got one for you, but keep going.
Yeah, and I mean by telegraphing moves because 2 days before the draft, Jerry was like, yeah, we don't think improving the run game means a running back. We think offensive lineman. Then they went and picked Tyler Booker in the first round. And then Will McClay was like, yeah, running backs can come anywhere. And they waited until the 5th round to get Jaden Blue. And then Jerry talking about, yeah, we were going to have some big trade. And then they go get George Pickens. Like, they've actually telegraphed some things pretty honestly this offseason, which is kind of fascinating.
So I will give you credit on that, Jerry. Absolutely. But you got me scrolling here through my tweets here, going back a little bit here. Let's see. I can't remember where the exact quote is.
Oh, the Steven quote?
Yeah, Steven talking about the receivers and how that they don't need to add another one. Brian Schottenheimer then following it up saying that I think we're deep. It's like, guys, so here's the toothpaste, and you let it out of the tube when you showed the interest in Tat McMillan. You can't sit there and then do that and then all of a sudden be like, oh, no, we're good with our guy. No, we know that you have to have interest beyond that. It's kind of like with me being a Detroit Tigers fan, like they were in on Alex Bregman. They get outbid by the Red Sox and you're sitting there like, well, you can't just spend nothing now. You're ready to go over $100 million over there. You can't just all of a sudden be like, yeah, we don't got the money. No, you were willing to spend it. So you can't sit there and say that you feel like the roster was fine. So that was the only one. I agree with all the other ones that you pointed out, Saad, absolutely. But it was Steven after the first round when he was on 105.3 The Fan. And then after they didn't take a receiver in the draft, and when he was saying something, I'm like, we know he doesn't believe that. We know that. And even if it wasn't Pickens, and even if it wasn't this week, it might have been at training camp, or it might have been after teams cut their rosters down. There was going to be another veteran wide receiver added to the mix.
Yeah, and it was mostly Jerry. You're right, because I went back and listened to that press conference. Todd Archer couldn't even finish asking the question before Jerry was like, the train has not left the station. Like, we need some help. We will go get some help. And then 2 weeks later, they had George Pickens. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. I think we should all be ready for some roller coaster highs and lows and things like that. And it's funny, though. You talk about this guy, like, all right, CeeDee Lamb has not been problematic too often, but, like, not that far removed of him in a week 5 game. I think it was the 49ers, him going to the end of the bench by himself, holding his helmet. And sure enough, it snapped some life into that offense. Like, having a guy like this can also help. Now, I don't know. You say, I should be careful with that. Having a guy like this, as if we know how he is. How is he going to mesh? Do his players like him? Multiple reports on that, coming out of Pittsburgh. Boy, it's fun when you see other teams, though, for once. When you look at other teams, and like Steelers fans, what I've seen at least, I don't know what you guys have seen, what I've seen out there, you look at them, they're like, Jesus, good luck, but he's really good. And we have DK Metcalf and who else? And they're griping about not drafting Shedeur Sanders and Calvin Austin being a number 2 wide receiver. So, like,
and
we don't know what comes with him. It's not going to be perfect.
And to be honest, the obviously there's a lot of individual things that are different. The head coaches are different, things like that. But there's also a lot of similarities right now, and have been for a while, between the Cowboys and Steelers, where they're just hanging around in the middle. They're not bad enough to where you think that, hey, we're going to be in the mix for Caleb Williams. They're not good enough to where you're like, yeah, this is their year. They're making a run of the Super Bowl. They're just kind of in that middle, and they've been there for a while. And so that part of it is fascinating to me also, that they're arguably, no offense to your Packers, the 2 biggest brands in football. So there are some different levels to this that make it certainly more interesting than, let's say, if they did a deal with a, receiver from the, I don't know, Buccaneers.
Yeah.
Yeah. And real quick, one situation that I think should be like on alert, and it's very realistic, and this would be, I think, untenable in this situation, is if Dak goes down, you lose his leadership from the locker room, and quarterback play is now suffering because, whatever you have as your backup, Joe Milton, whatever, is throwing. And that is where things can get tough, because this offseason alone, you just lost Brandon Cooks and Zach Martin in terms of your veteran leaders. Dak is the leader. Dak is the one holding it all together on the offense in terms of guys that are bona fide leaders. If he goes down like he did last year or something like that, that situation can get really ugly on the offense.
When I think of the Milton thing, though, I will say everything I agree with you during the season and for winning games, but those Oxnard videos, I don't know, a rollout 80-yard bomb from Milton to Pickens, I think that's going to cook.
No, that will cook for you. This is the most, and it's May, so like we're all getting this like, okay, the schedule's going to come out next week, and then you get a few months off, and then training camp. So it's May, but a move like this is the most excited I've been about the Cowboys since probably
Staubach?
I'm gonna say at least the Danny White era that I was not around for. I would say year 3 of McCarthy. Because the last 2 years I've kind of been like, and I know they hit us with the all in.
Oh, I would say year 4 with McCarthy. I really think that's one of the best Cowboys teams of the last 15 years.
You're right.
They were just rolling at home, and then they fell into that number 2 seed. I was like, oh yeah, this team, this is their best chance to go to the NFC Championship game in a long time. And
they inducted Jimmy.
And they lifted that curse.
You're right.
I mean, you're forgetting about a lot of little things here that really seemed like it was setting things into motion, okay?
Yeah, Brandon Cook and Stephon Gilmore year, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it was the thing that I'll always look back on, and especially if he comes back from this knee injury and plays well for the rest of his career, but that was Overshown's rookie year. And there's just a lot about that season where I'm like, man, if they had Overshown that year, who knows how much better. Now, of course, they couldn't stop KT running the ball, but still, there was a lot of other things they did, taking the ball away and things they did on defense that made you think, like, again, hey, it's not going to be perfect, but this is a team that's there to make a run for sure. And I think that's also why Jerry felt the way that he did after they lost that Green Bay game in the manner that they did, that he was like, yeah, I'm not emptying the tank and doing anything in the offseason. Well, we're going to kind of run it back with this team, and if it doesn't get done, then probably going another direction at head coach.
Yeah, I think that's another thing that excites me, though, is like the new coaching staff. How do they handle something like this? I mean, there's just a lot of fresh storylines, I guess, whereas it was kind of getting tired and repetitive at the end last year.
I can't see any way that Schottenheimer wasn't heavily involved with this move. It would go against everything that they've been doing since they hired him. For Jerry and Steven to just pull this thing off without like really being like, okay, do you think that you've built the right culture? Do you think that you'll have the right situation where this guy can, succeed and won't be potentially leading it down a path where he's not only hurting, let's say the passing game, but all of a sudden he's dragging down some other teammates and stuff like that. Now the season's unraveling and stuff. So I don't see them doing this move without Schottenheimer giving it his blessing.
I agree. All right. Closing thoughts, anyone?
Let's see more moves. This is fun.
Breece Hall? You go get Breece Hall?
Do that. Go sign Stephon Gilmore. Get that Micah Parsons contract done. Let's get crazy. Let's go to California with just some wild moves and a lot of hype, and then have some fun.
Follow John
even if they
Twitter.
don't,
it's about to get good.
Even if what's that?
I said follow John on Twitter. It's about to get good.
Even if they don't do any more veteran moves, and I still think that they're just in a lot better position right now than I thought they were.
Yeah.
An hour before the draft. Actually, you know what? Even after they made the first round pick.
Yeah. 100%.
I mean, I'd like to see what the crowd would have been like at the Star if they would have announced during the draft, like that they had traded that pick.
Yeah.
That they done that trade and it was being announced during the draft, like how fired up fans would be that, because when they're at the draft, like, at the Star, you have all these Cowboys fans that are together, they're excited, they're getting, draft picks and stuff like that, to then also announce that move on top of it. I mean, that's Cowboys fans have been missing that for a little bit.
Yeah. One last thing I'll say, KT, is something that John hit on earlier, but I think it's worth repeating is we've heard how much the Cowboys get obsessed with like comp picks and stuff. And it wouldn't surprise me at all if they saw this as like, if this is a 1-year thing, it essentially becomes 2 pick swaps and that's pretty much it. And it's a wash. And the public might not view it that way, but it wouldn't surprise me as Stephen Jones in particular just sees this as like, if it didn't work out, then we did 2 pick swaps and that's it.
Yeah. You don't have to budget money for him yet, or for Jake Ferguson, or for Jalen Tolbert. Clearly, I'll even say Deron Bland. You don't even have to. I mean, you get in corners, but like you don't have to like set that aside right now. Like you can let these guys go perform and get that check. But also, this is something we've seen this organization do, and it makes a lot of sense. We kind of get angry, not angry with them, but like when they draft for need, and it feels like they're drafting for need, but trading for need, 100%. I love that. I just think it's a great way to do business, and
it kind of fits with Jerry. I mean, if you look at his history, like if he's going to make a move, it's usually at wide receiver, like a notable move. I mean, it's been going on for a while. I mean, I know that Brandon Cooks didn't reach the ceiling that some of us thought he would, or maybe even same thing with Amari Cooper. But when they made those trades, you're like, damn, like, okay, this is a good move. Like, this makes sense. And then obviously going back to Roy Williams, and going out and getting T.O. and Galloway and all that stuff. But yeah, there is he has a big, I mean, trading up for Dez. He definitely has a big time interest in wide receiver. Also to the fact of, Saad, how many times do we have to hear throughout the draft references to Michael Irvin's leadership? I mean, it was getting to the level where, like, I mean, do we got talking points on this sheet of paper, or what are we doing here, Jerry?
All right, guys, we'll be checking out. You said big piece coming in the morning on The Athletic.
Yeah, Saad wrote a column today about George Pickens, and then there's a Q&A tomorrow coming up where our Steelers writer Mike DeFabo, is it DeFabo or DeFabo? Do you know, Saad?
Let's call him Mike.
But he gives his perspective. Obviously, he's been around George Pickens for the last few years, and so just bounced a few questions off him, kind of with the player that they're getting.
All right, everyone, go check that out. We'll be back next week after the schedule drops at some point. We got to do that. So schedule release, I believe, next Wednesday night. So we'll probably be with you sometime on Thursday. Make sure that you're following John and Saad. Check out their work over at The Athletic. And we will see you next week. Thank you for listening and following. And then, by the way, we'll be here if anything else happens. They make a trade or do something else crazy. Emergency pod, we'll line it up for you. For Saad Youssef, for John Machota, for Kent Garrison, who's out seeing Wilco tonight, I am Kevin Turner. We'll talk to you next time on the One Star Cowboys podcast.
The Summer of George!